Hi there, John Siddique here, and second video of the day. I don't know what's going on. It seems to be a day for making videos and communicating, which is wonderful. And I've just made a video about why things are so difficult in the world at the moment, and we had a terrible extremist murder carried out by a terrorist yesterday in this country, in UK, and so I've just done a video reflecting on the spiritual aspects of that. So if you're interested in that, it's the video that's before this in my YouTube queue, or I'll put a link down below to it, and if you want to have a look at that, and maybe I'll put one of those things that a little eye comes up in the corner. I'll do that now, just there. And or is it on that side? I don't know. Wherever it pops up, that's where it is. I wanted to it's very hard. I want to talk about something very, very positive. And given that it's been such a difficult week on planet Earth, it's always a difficult week on planet Earth. But I wanted to talk about something really, really positive. I got the most lovely message the other day from Diane, who follows some of my meditations online. I've been putting these kind of inspiring poems out, you know, my thing for doing these inspiring poems. And I've been putting them in some different places, and there's like a download album you can buy and whatever, but she's been listening to these and maybe doing some of the meditations as well. And she sent me this message. I just want to read you part of what she wrote to me. Hi Diane, this is videos for you really, because you're asking about how the class was last night, Wednesday night rather. So I thought, instead of typing a long message to you, which is something I struggle with, is typing a lot, which is quite strange for a writer, but I thought I'd just make an email. I thought I'd make a video instead. So Diane wrote, I know that unless the choice is made to live on purpose, mindfully in the moment, then half a life always becomes an eventuality, and that is whole death. And this was particularly in response to my recording of Khalil Gibran's poem of Do Not Love Half Lovers, which is a beautiful, beautiful poem and very, very inspiring. And it's kind of circulating out there. And I was so moved by Diane's mail that I decided to teach my whole class, my meditation class on Wednesday night. I decided to kind of make the whole class about just this, really. And so we did a couple of meditations that just really focused on that feeling, that desire that's in us. Not a mental desire, you know, but that kind of and that dreaming of things. But those are expressions of it. Those are a kind of outward expression of the deeper thing, which is this movement in life in us that moves towards freedom. And it's there in every single person. It's absolutely universal. Yes, in the stuff that I've been talking about in the other video, in those that terrorize and kill us, in those that preach hatred, in those that are acquisitive for power and enormous wealth that can never satisfy anything. In those, the push for freedom is this corrupted in a way of looking outwards, or repression, or murder. But it's still the drive for freedom, you know. For those of us who are consciously evolving, who have begun to understand who we are and are moving with life so that we unfold. It becomes becomes part of the path. You know, restriction, we meet restrictions in our lives, and we meet things that seem difficult. And instead of trying to batter their walls down, we might initially kind of start by kind of, oh no, you know, here's a terrible thing. But actually, when restrictions arise, or what seem to be restrictions, they actually become mirrors on our own relationship with presence, with our own relationship with awareness and consciousness, and that kind of true God self, and who we really are. And so in our first meditation the other night, I tried to record the meditations the other night, but it was too noisy. Otherwise I would have shared them with you. It was too noisy outside, and inside there was some noises around the building and things. We just really kind of using the very simple way of meditating by just becoming aware of our senses. See how your 5 senses are operating right now. Those 5 senses are reporting. They're not reporting to the mind, they're reporting to a kind of a witnessing place inside you. And so we don't kind of sort of space out or trance out or go away anywhere. We just come in to that kind of truer place, and we see that the mind is doing its thing, and we see that the emotions are doing their thing, and some of the things are a bit tight or whatever, but we can recognize that there is a kind of life in the body and a place that comes first, and that there's no way further back from that place. And we do that just by simply kind of being aware of our senses and then simply coming behind them in the body. And we can use the breath as well in the same way. We feel the breath coming and going quite naturally in the body. And yet we know we're observing that, and we're not observing it with the mind. You can observe it with the mind, and you can do kind of breath counting and so on, but then that's just the mind kind of concentrating. But before even that, we can see that. And so we came into that truer place inside ourselves. And when we were there, in our kind of recognition of truth in ourselves, rather than a thought thing, we allowed ourselves to kind of re-experience our urge for freedom, our urge for creative growth, our urge of unfolding. And to kind of notice that the things that appear to be restriction actually don't restrict this life at all, but they may restrict the expression of it. And that's another thing, and that's kind of what we have to do in our dynamic life, is we have to kind of look at those things, because it's all very well to sit and do our practice, do our yoga, do our meditation, drink our green juice and so on, and to even experience presence and the place of witnessing. But we are human beings. We are human beings, and we have conditioning, and we have things operating on us, and we have illnesses, and we have all sorts of stuff. And what we tend to do is we tend to identify through the conditioning or the illness. And if you've ever been to a doctor's surgery, I'm sure you have, and as you get older, you get to my kind of age, and people are kind of, oh, BD, and all they tell you about when you meet them is their illness. I've been so ill, I've been like this, and I've been like that. So just maybe it's a little practice for yourself, just kind of notice how people are identifying themselves. Next time you're in a coffee shop, or you're out, or you're talking to one of your friends, or if you go out for dinner tonight with some people, just listen how they're identifying themselves through work and their illnesses and so on. And we don't try and change that at all. What we need to do is reflect on our expression of identity. What are we identifying through? And even if there is kind of, illness and difficulty in our lives, the living in truth and presence kind of creates a space in which we can see what those things really are, and that they don't genuinely harm us. Not the truth of us that can't be touched or soiled by anything at all. It's only identity through things that are other than that, of kind of not genuinely living from the centre, but living from ideas of who we think we should be, trying to build identities. For me, having been a writer, and still am a writer, although I don't relate in the same way anymore, a lot of my identity for about 20 years was built on my intellect. I was blessed to be born with a mind that can really look at things and weigh things up and measure things and see things and write things down in very clear and simple ways that other people feel like they've met. And you can do IQ numbers and all that sort of thing, and it's lovely. It's great. It's great to have this facility. But when I identified through it, it turned me into an arsehole. It just turned me into an arsehole. And I think rule number one on the spiritual path is don't be an arsehole. And we only do that by our identification with things. Even by identifying with being on the spiritual path turns us into an arsehole. Anyway, this is a funny little diversion. But what we need to do, coming back to this idea of living fully, is to be in touch with that movement that's inside us. And then as we leave down reaction, as we don't fight our corner so much, as we don't need to do that anymore because we're nourished from within, we're kind of kissed by God within, we start seeing where there are areas of restriction in our lives, and we probably find that actually, while we think it might be our partner or somebody else restricting us, it's actually us that's restricting us. It's us having not chosen to live in a way that's conducive with the unfolding that's within us, that's in alignment with that. And so we can then begin to choose to live much more in alignment with our unfolding and with our truth. And it may be then, as has been my experience, that some of the people in our lives will leave because we're not believing in each other's stuff anymore. We're not joining in with the stories anymore in the same way that we used to. And of course we have attachment and we have emotion, and we are animal as much as we are spirit, and so we have a pack aspect to us. And so when people leave, there is a sadness to it. There is a sadness to it as well. But we're not pushing anybody away. We find that people that are not kind of sort of living in their truth will just tend to kind of sort of move away from us. But instead of us actually being judgmental and critical of them, we see with love how, kind of how they're living, the structures that they've made around the truth of their lives. And then we have compassion and forgiveness. And the person that we most need to have compassion and forgiveness for, of course, is ourselves. And so I always advocate in my classes that we look at developing a self-caring, self-loving relationship with ourselves. This is primary, as well as kind of being in presence, that the movement towards kind of having a full life, of expressing ourselves in alignment with the truth that shines through us, is done in a loving and self-caring way. Because if we're beating ourselves up because we haven't lived right, or we've lived a conditioned life in the past, or because our food's not right and things like that, then that doesn't help at all. All we're doing is creating a cycle of self-abuse and damaging ourselves further. Whereas moving into forgiveness and compassion and self-love with ourselves doesn't mean letting ourselves off. It means radically looking at the dynamic expression of our lives and maybe thinking about what we eat and whether that serves our body. If we have an illness or an ongoing thing that is going to kind of continue through this human life, maybe depression or a sort of physical aspect or something, then how do we best support our self-caring around that thing, and it becomes part of our practice and part of our love, rather than I wish this thing would go away and being a rejection of ourselves. So, yeah. How do we express ourselves through our lives? Are we living from the mind? Are we living from conditioned emotions? Or are we learning to align outwardly with what's real about us and organic and true? And that seems to be what this is. So Diane, and anybody else watching this, if you're still here with me at this point, that's kind of what we looked at in the class the other night. The classes are always, it was a beautiful class. We had quite a number of people came. Class has been quite quiet recently. And but we had a big class the other night, and just the value in kind of letting go of all of our conditioned stuff and just sitting together. The word for this is satsang, and which derives from sangha, of community that is meeting in truth, is the most valuable thing. I had to actually, the second meditation, I actually extended it and sort of gently dropped in that if we could just be aware of this feeling of being together in truth, because this is what makes real community. If we're going to affect change, to have a world that's more aligned with truth and life, then meeting in true community in satsang is the very best way, I think. Not meeting to talk about things, but meeting in the heart of life together. So if you do have some people that you can sit with and be in truth with, then let's try and do that maybe once or twice a week. And if you haven't, then one of the reasons I do these videos and things and kind of have Authentic Living as a kind of website and channel and classes and so on is to try and kind of be somebody that others can meet, so that they know they're not on their own with this stuff, and that there's another person consciously evolving, living from their truth, and it's not their truth that's thought up in their head, but the actual truth of life as it's revealing itself. And I know I have my limitations, and I have my own stuff, and I'm just on my path, but it's always a pleasure and a feeling of love when I make these videos, because it's the one of the best things I can think to do is to kind of meet you in this way. And I'm so grateful for the tools of things that we have, like YouTube now and the internet and so on. We can use these things for hate and for extremism, or we can use these things to meet over much larger distances, or be together when circumstances may not allow us in other ways to be together. But it's really best when we can physically be in the same space together, and little retreats or classes or gatherings in each other's homes, and share some food, meditate, and just be in truth, not faking it in any way, not faking anything, not pretending anything, but just simply meeting in the heart, inside the heart, and be like that with each other. There's no need then we're not vulnerable anymore. It's actually open and flowering and beautiful and strong, like we are. Have a beautiful day. Bless you. Thank you, Diane, again. And so much love from me to any of you watching this. And please feel free to subscribe to my newsletter. I'll put a link down below. I'm going to send a newsletter out very soon. Subscribe to this channel. Give this video a thumbs up or share it on your whatever sort of channels that you have, if you think it's of use to anybody else. Yeah, and talk to you very soon. Lots of love.